I'm Sutapa Sarkar from Central Water Commission, and I take this opportunity to welcome the galaxy of dignitaries, distinguished guests, respectable seniors, and colleagues to the special event of the India-EU Partnership on Water Cooperation at the 7th India Water Week 2022 on water security for sustainable development with equity. A very warm and hearty welcome to you all. The India-EU Water Partnership is an outcome of the Joint Declaration on Water, adopted by India and the EU on 30th March 2016 during the 13th EU-India Summit in Brussels in March 2016 to enhance cooperation on water issues, including Clean Ganga program of the Government of India and Memorandum of Understanding on Water Cooperation between the EU and Government of India signed in October 2016. On 27 October 2022, the 5th India-EU Forum on Water Cooperation was held in New Delhi, which aimed to bring together a wide range of stakeholders from both India and the EU and its EU member states with the objective to exchange views on good practices, regulatory approaches, business solutions, and research and innovation opportunities in the water field in India and EU. The objective of today's session on India-EU Water Partnership is to contribute to the shared vision by India and the EU for a more sustainable management of water resources and tackling the challenges posed by water management in the context of growing population, competing water demands, and climate change. This session aims to contribute with possible ways on water security for sustainable development with equity. May I now invite Ms. Laura Susteris-Sick, GIZ Project Manager, IEWP Action, and moderator for this session, and request you, ma'am, to kindly take the session forward. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am.
Dear Sutapa, thank you so much. And dear dignitaries, the galaxy of dignitaries and important people here, dear colleagues, welcome. Thank you for being here this morning to listen to this parallel session. I know we have many parallel sessions ongoing, but I tell you, this is the most interesting one. So well done to you to be here. So I am the project manager of the IEWP partnership, so the India-EU Water Partnership Action. So I work for the GIZ, and the GIZ co-implements and co-funds together with the European Union part of the India-EU Water Partnership. We have a series of activities that we are implementing in partnership with CWC, with the Central Water Commission, and we will have a presentation on that. But the India-EU Water Partnership is a larger umbrella, and we will hear now what it is all about and activities and importance and objectives of the IEWP, so the India-EU Water Partnership, from Mr. Girdhar, who is the convener of the India-EU Water Partnership and the director at the Central Water Commission. Mr. Girdhar, please, the stage is yours. Mr. Girdhar will give us the welcome address and an overview of the partnership. Thank you.
A warm, graceful morning to all of you. So I take this opportunity to first welcome the participants from EU delegation, GIZ, from other speakers from IIT Delhi, participants, and ladies and gentlemen. So I will take this opportunity to take a presentation on Indo-European Water Partnership, on basic overview, how it started and what is the present progress. So I will end up with the nodal deliverables as on date. हाँ भाई, हाँ भाई. So it all started. So it all started when our Honorable Prime Minister of India uh, attended the 13th EU India Summit in Brussels in March 2016, where a joint declaration was signed. So it all, as the photo depicts, it all started when our Honorable Prime Minister visited Brussels in March 2016, where he attended the 13th EU India Summit. So i- during the summit, a joint declaration on IEWP was signed in the presence of the members of European Union, represented by President of European Council Donald Tusk and President of European Commission Jean-Claude Juncker. So joint declaration was aimed to strengthen the technological, scientific and management capabilities of India and EU in the field of water management on the basis of equality, reciprocity and mutual benefit of India and EU Commission. Other deliverables are like joint declaration will bring together representatives of relevant stakeholders, including interested EU member states and member countries and Indian states, European and Indian institutions, businesses and civil societies. Also to exchange views on regulatory approaches, including procurement, governance, best practices, business solutions, R&D, innovation opportunities in the water field in India and EU. Also to continue technical exchange on water issues, notably through study visits to EU or on missions to India, and also to jointly organize a Indo-European Water Forum, the recent fifth forum held on 27th of October. So in continuation to the joint declaration signed on March 2016, so in October an MOU was signed. The deliverables are the same. In addition, support to the implementation of Ganga regeneration was also included, in particular through the quick win business solution based on EU best practices. A joint working group, as per MOU, a joint working group need to be constituted with technical experts of equal number from India and European Union to discuss, implement and monitor the activities. So representatives will be like from the Ministry of Jal Shakti from Indian side and EU delegation and EU Director General of European Commission from EU side. So as per MOU, joint working group would preferably meet through video conferencing at least twice in a year. Physical meetings can take alternatively in India and Europe. EU and India will bear their own expenses arising from the cooperation activities. Also, the MOU is valid for 5 years, which will automatically get extended for additional 5 years unless plans, capacity building, treated wastewater reuse, research, innovation, and technology. So I will brief about what are the deliverables achieved during the first phase. So under the first priority, a Tapi River Basin was selected and the management plan was implemented. Then report on extent of problem and broad solutions for identified 5 key water management issues were completed. And it is a continuing activity in phase 2 also. Under environmental flow, some comparative analysis were done on the policies and some E4 pilot studies were carried out in Ramganga, Bharatpura and Mahanadi. And a guidance document was, our environmental flow assessment was prepared and then circulated. Under priority 3 Ganga regeneration, IEWP supported water information system of Ganga and then coordination was done with for Clean Ganga. Also some multi-stakeholder participation was implemented under this priority area. So under groundwater reuse, so an handbook of interpretation and analysis of isotope for aquifer mapping was released and then it was integrated into the priority number 1. Then under water use in irrigation, pilot study was conducted on 3 pilot studies on Mahor, Lower Panjora and Golagaon. And also irrigation canal automation was studied for tertiary distribution in Upper Indravati, Odisha, all like published documents. Under solar pumping for irrigation, solar pumping is like converting the solar energy into electrical energy for operating the pumps. So the impact of solar pumping on groundwater use was assessed and then report published. It was also made integral part of PR1. So under capacity building, more focus was given to river basin management, which itself covers many priority areas within. Under treated wastewater reuse and comparative assessment was carried out on policies presently available in India. And also a national framework of safe reuse and treated water was released. Under research and innovation and technology, already EU Horizon 2020 projects is going on and then the work plan was devised to collaborate a cooperation between the IEWP action and EU Horizon 2020 projects so that it disseminates whatever technology from Horizon 2020 into the Indian projects. So in under phase 2, so as I already told you, there was a JWG meeting held and then a flexible plan was devised and then the further 9 priority areas under phase 1 was converted into 4 work areas. Like river basin management, including river basin toolbox. That is the main highlight of this IEWP, where the river basin toolbox will be developed so that it can be adapted to other river basins in India. So with in phase 2, water quality, water quantity, other basin names were also included. Under irrigation reuse, there is a process to develop irrigation efficiency protocol. Under e-flow, selected Ganga River Basin, some relevant with stakeholders, the studies are going on. Under safe reuse of rewater, so there is a proposal to finalize a national policy on safe reuse of treated water. So vertical cross pillars will be like along the after the completion of these projects, then we have to implement the mission. As at present, the status is already the measures are already proposed, and it is with the state government to implement. Then towards the facilitation towards the piloting through EU businesses. So because whatever technology being adopted by the state government, so EU business can take over can see a possible business intake. Then capacity building on whatever learned things. So one slide I will add on research and innovation. So as I already told you, the joint EU-India Water Horizon 2020 projects, it covers 7 R&D projects in India, which is India H20, Lotus, Pani Water, Pavitra Ganga, Saraswati and Spring. So around about 743 participants are involved in the project and the overall funding of about 37.4 million euros. So it is funded by EU Horizon Network from the EU side, from Indian side through Department of Science and Technology and Department of Biotechnology. So water projects mainly delivers focus on drinking water purification, wastewater treatment and real-time monitoring and control system. It also demonstrates the energy efficient and cost-effective solutions relevant for India water sector. So IEWP action serves as a platform to disseminate whatever relevant technical recommendation of the Horizon 2020 projects into the planned solution problem within the priority areas of IEWP, and also whatever flagging the learnings from Horizon 2020 to the possible business intake for EU business and also Indian partners. One last slide. So just to nodal officers who are all working under this project right now from Indian side. So like convener myself, Director Remote Sensing Central Water Commission. So under River Basin Management, the Chief Engineer BPMO CWC will be overall sharing this priority area with in coordination with member headquarters Central Groundwater Board. For the specifically creation of RBM toolbox, the Chief Engineer BPMO and Executive Director Projects NMCG will take over. Under E-flow assessment, Director of Hydrology South CWC, Executive Director Projects NMCG, and a scientist from Central Groundwater Board will coordinate. Under reuse of treated wastewater, Director from Central Water Commission, Executive Director Technical NMCG, and a Director JJM from Drinking Water. And also a Senior Joint Commissioner from Ministry will also join over. Dr. Suresh from CGWB also. Under water use efficiency, there is a Chief Engineer POMIO sitting in Central Water Commission. For training and capacity from CWC side, it is National Water Academy Pune. From NMCG ED projects will coordinate. Member HQ will coordinate from CGWB side. Research and innovation, there is a Director of R&D sitting in Ministry of Jal Shakti coordinating the events. Thank you. Anyway, I take this opportunity once again to thank all of you for joining the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Girdhar. And I would like now to invite the other speakers also to join you on the dais. Otherwise, it feels very lonely. I tried just now. So I'd like to invite Mr. Vikrant Tyagi, is the project coordinator of the IEWP Action. Mrs. Camilla Kirstensen-Rai, who's a counselor at the delegation of the European Union to India. Thank you. Welcome, Camilla. Mr. Jukka Ilomäki, who's a counselor, trade and investment at the Embassy of Finland. Mr. Professor Gosain from INRM Consultants and IIT Delhi. And Mr. Karya, who's the chief engineer at CWC. Thank you very much. Welcome, take place. It's good to have you all here. Otherwise, the dais empties. It's very lonesome. So thank you, Mr. Karya, for this nice overview on the IEWP partnership and on the action. As you said, it's quite a comprehensive setting, and it's, let's say, it has an umbrella of the partnership, which is at policy level between India and EU, exchanging on water issues. And we all know water issues today can only be solved if we work together. And this is how India and EU decided to share experiences at the policy, technical, and management level to address these global issues. And then we have the action, which is really a project full of activities and objectives that is being implemented by the GIZ, funded together by the EU and the BMZ, the German Ministry for Development Cooperation, and has got a series of objectives and activities that now Mr. Vikrant Tyagi, who is the project coordinator, will show us and take us through. Vikrant.
Thank you, Laura. So, as the initial introduction to the partnership has been given by the convener, Mr. Girdhar, I will continue with that. As he's mentioned that there was like the phase 1 and phase 2 started in October 2020. So this continuation of phase is like now facilitating the further consolidation of the technical actions as well as strengthening of the India-EU political dialogue. And I also want to let you know, like in the European Union, so far there are like 198 river basin management plans, which are based on the principle and best approaches of the European Water Framework Directives. And those plans have been implemented in 198 river basin district in European Union. So while developing those plans and implementing those plans, there were certain successes and certain failures. So a lot of lessons were being learned. And that one of the objective or aim behind this action is like to bring those experience from the European Union water sector to India, so that a sort of realignment or restructuring of the policies could be there. Uh, then in the phase one, there were like 9 priority areas, and in the phase two, which builds upon the experience of the phase one, the learnings and experience from the 9 priority areas have been consolidated into the 4 work areas. Apart from these 4 working areas, there are cross-cutting issues, which also include for all the work areas wherever it is possible, and that mainly include flagging business opportunities in the Indian water sector and possible piloting opportunities through EU technologies. So as my previous speaker, Mr. Girdhar, has mentioned that river basin management, we are continuing in the second phase also. And in the phase one, Tapi River Basin Management Plan was developed. And it was decided that the plan will be further strengthened and detailed out in the phase two. Under the steering of a joint working group and the joint nodal officer, which are there for the IWP action, it has been decided that for the river basin management work area, we will going to detail out the RBM plan. There will be we all will be working towards the gradual implementation of the program of measures. Then RBM toolbox will going to be developed so that the learnings from the TAPI can be replicated to the other river basins in India. There was this desire also from the National Mission for Clean Ganga that there is a means, because the EU framework directive approach is like that the river basin management plans are being made in a cyclic approach, and this cycle is for 6 years, and after every 6 years we keep on revising the thing. So it is not of a bit static nature, but it is bit like forwarding in nature and provides a pathway to implement the program of measure. So with this desire, there was a thing that we should develop a RBM plan for one of the sub-basin of River Ganga, and Ram Ganga Basin was being identified. And right now, RBM plan for Ram Ganga is also being developed together with the support to Ganga Resolution Project of Indo-German Technical Cooperation. And then there are like hands-on training. So under this area, I just want to tell you, like in the phase two, which started in October 2020, so far what we have done. So Government of India has reconstituted the Tapi River Basin Committee. So Tapi River Basin Committee is a formally established committee by the Government of India, which include members from the central and state level, plus additional member from the relevant organizations. Then there is a team of expert, European Union experts are there, those who are supporting the detailing and strengthening of the Tapi River Basin Management Plan, which was developed in the phase one. They are on board. Then we also able to have like an agreement with the Tapi River Basin Committee, like on the scope of the detailing for all the 5 key water management issues for both surface and groundwater. Then in the first phase, when plan was developed, and as mentioned by Mr. Girdhar, that COVID pandemic was there and certain study missions could not able to happen. There was a time like we could not able to get certain data, and data challenges were being there related to pesticide, fertilizers, and so on. So when we were developing the plan for the phase two, this thing was there that we really need to work on it. And there were certain additions like water accounting, water allocation modeling, Rebasim model. So, and even strengthening of the hydrological modeling for Tapi and Ramganga Basin. So all this thing have started. I would also like to mention that so far there are like multiple mission, and the last mission was of the EU groundwater expert, wherein the joint work was done at regional office of Central Groundwater Board in Madhya Pradesh, Bhopal. And the last activity means few days back, which we have done, is like the first consultation with the state of Maharashtra happened on the program of measure, which is like a centerpiece of the Tapi River Basin Management Plan. And together we discussed like what could be the prioritized program of measures for Maharashtra. And soon the list will be out. The next step is like we are still collecting the data sets and the analysis of that data set so that the risk assessment can be detailed out. And we are basically focusing now on fertilizer and pesticide data set, consultation with the Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat on the program of measure. So this shows like how stakeholders are important in the process which we are doing in Tapi River Basin Management Plan, that all the concerned basin states are very well informed and are part of the process while developing the plan. So then we need to consolidate the result of all these activity. There is a need to have an agreement on the mechanism to facilitate gradual implementation of the program of measure. And then the finalization of the next version of the TAPI RBM plan means the first phase, cyclic phase will be completed by 2023. And as it has been mentioned that a study tour to Europe was been envisaged in the phase 1, which could not happen because of the COVID pandemic. So we hope that in the second phase, we are going to have this study tour. The second work area was irrigation efficiency. There is means a joint agreement like European Union expert will support the Government of India officials to develop a protocol to assess the irrigation efficiency. Three irrigation projects like Lower Panjara, Mahuar and Golavagu have been selected. We already have the data sets from all the state irrigation project which is being with the EU experts, and she's processing it. And the next step will be is like the development of the protocol and then a mission of the EU expert to present the findings, as well as to develop the capacity building, like a dissemination of the result, and to put a thing like what kind of physical measures and policy interventions are needed so that we can improve if there is a need to improve the irrigation efficiency. One of the important work area which we are continuing from the phase 1 is like e-flows assessment, and the initially it was like 3 river basins were being selected in India, which are situated in a different hydroclimatic conditions. Like Ramganga Basin was selected, Bharat Puja Basin in Kerala was selected, and Mahanadi Delta was selected, and e-flows assessment were carried out. So far, we have like in the first phase, the final report of the Ramganga and Bharat Puja visas. Mahanadi is still finalizing. And then a guidance documents was prepared together with the Indian experts, where there was this understanding that considering the kind of scenarios which we have in India, that what kind of methodology is best suited so that we can determine what is the adequate quantity of flow in the river, considering all the socio-economical aspect which we have here. So far, the achievement is like there was a e-flow mission to collect the pre-monsoon data, and then training was being organized jointly with National Water Academy and Central Water Commission. One is like the virtual introduction to the e-flows, and second is like hands-on data collection, because with the e-flows, what we are not only looking like the hydrology or the quantity related data sets, but also how to collect those environment and ecosystem related data sets, the services which are provided by the river to the environment at large. Next step is like we also need to go for a post-monsoon data collection. It was supposed to be happened in September, but because of the weather condition, we cancelled it. Now it will be in December. And then in the phase 1, a selected portion of Ramganga was being selected to do the e-flows assessment. Now it is being done in the entire basin. And all the result of this assessment will finally flow into the guidance document and finalization of Mahanadi Delta flow assessment. The last work area is like safe reuse of treated water. In the phase 1, under this partnership, a national framework on safe reuse of treated wastewater was like jointly developed through a consultative approach, and all the relevant stakeholders at the central and state were involved. This framework is in a very advanced stage of its notification and publication, and maybe in a month or two we will have this notified by the Ministry of Jal Shakti. So this in the phase two, when this thing was being present to the Honorable Minister Shri Shekhawat ji, so there was this desire that now when we will going to implement the guide framework document at India level, there should be certain supporting knowledge or the guidance which can help in fostering the reuse of treated wastewater, so that coherent practices can be applied throughout the India. So Honorable Minister suggested that there is a need to work on the viable business models. So in the current phase, we are working on the viable business models for the various end use which are possible in India. And for that, there is in two steps, we have selected Panipat as a pilot. There is a textile cluster and CTP where huge quantum of treated wastewater is there. So our experts are now working on it together with NMCG and the state government of Haryana, that what could be the best viable business model to foster the reuse in Panipat. And then for various kind of end uses which could be possible in India, what should be the viable business models? So, as Mr. Girdhar has mentioned, that water is like something which one cannot take care of by means one institution is not enough, and we need a broader cooperation. So, apart from like this means EU and government of India thing, we are also trying to have we are trying to also spread out the cooperation with many others. So far in the phase one, 3 EU member states MOU was done with the Netherlands, Germany, and Hungary. It was also the objective of the action to have a memorandum of understanding or to establish a cooperation with other EU member state. But then we thought like it is also good like to look into the local scenario and the kind of local knowledge which is available in India and which is most specifically relevant to the local needs. So we did a MOU with Wildlife Institute of India and Dehradun, Central Indian Fisheries Research Institute in West Bengal, and the kind of data sets and the knowledge which these two institutes are bringing in is about the biotic and environmental related aspect of the environmental flows, and it is being going there. And then we also have a MOU with Siganga, IIT Kanpur, V2 and Valakwa. It is a consortium which gives a kind of a knowledge and it is established platform if we have to look on the technological or certain interventions which we need for wastewater sector here in India. There was a MOU with Water Resources 2030, IHE Delft, and it will continue. We are aiming that in this phase, we will have more MOUs with the Valmi institutions where the knowledge at the Indian level is really lying. So we need to, we are working towards that. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Vikrant, for this nice overview. I think one of the most striking points of your presentation is the wide range of stakeholders that the action is bringing together, and that is really interesting. You're having state governments, you have all the different, most of the central level institutions dealing with water that are involved, EU member states, foundations, think tanks. And I think this is really, really important to solve or to find solutions to these global issues like water resources management and addressing the impacts of climate change. We need everybody on board. It's not a task that one institution alone or one country alone can solve. This also bridges now to the next speakers, which is Mrs. Camilla Kirstensen-Rai, that will bring us the key points from the 5th India-EU Water Forum that, as we said, was bringing together the main stakeholders involved in water management in India and EU. Camilla, welcome.
All right, thank you very much. And nice to see you here. And what I would like to share with you is about the fifth India-EU Water Forum, which was held on the 27th of October in New Delhi. So my name is Camilla Kirstensen-Rai. I'm counselor at the delegation of the European Union to India here in New Delhi. And I cover this work on the water partnership. As of course, what we have learned is that the water partnership is a partnership between the EU and Government of India, Ministry of Jal Shakti. And within this partnership, we are implementing project which is funded by the EU and Germany. And then when we say phase 2 of the project, that is the project we are talking about. So the theme of the India Water Week is on water security. It's on sustainable development with equity. And basically, when we talk about water security, there's different keywords I think we need to keep in mind. So reliable, availability, and also acceptable quantity and the acceptable quantity of water. And then of course we talk about water for people, for livelihoods, for production, for irrigation, and so on. So I think this is a very important topic, and of course it is also within the framework of the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 6 on clean water and sanitation. So to go back to our EU-India Water Forum on 27th October, which we had a great pleasure to coordinate together with Central Water Commission, Ministry of Jal Shakti, GIZ, and our EU member states. So what did we then do at the Water Forum? I think some key points. It did contribute to our shared visions between the EU and India for a more sustainable management of water resources. It also contributed towards the tackling of the challenges posed by water management in the context of increasing population, in the competing water demands, and also in terms of climate change. So we spent one day together on the exchange. And what is important to say here, this is of course a partnership. So it's a two-way approach. It's a two-way exchange of learning from India, learning from EU, and among each other here. It was also the 5th EU-India Water Partnership. It was a step towards to scale up our cooperation, as it has been agreed between the EU and Government of India in the terms of water management and in terms of tackling water pollution and in line with the Sustainable Development Goal 6. It also underlined the importance of addressing water challenges in the context of climate change. Since in one of our 4 sessions, we had perspectives from the EU and India on water challenges in the context of climate change. It also addressed water security, reliable availability of water, and what I said already, quantity and quality of water. And of course, I'd like also to thank our EU member states who were present at the EU-India Water Forum and spoke as well. And today also we have, thank you to Embassy of Finland. We had speakers from Denmark, we had speakers from Belgium, and from the Netherlands. So what I want to share as well is that we looked at one of the elements we looked at the Water Forum was basically when you go from a research and innovation project in the water sector and you go towards the business take-up. What are the barriers, or what is working well in this connection between research innovation and into the business or into the market and the business take-up? And this is one of the areas which I think we will work further on as well. Then we were also had the opening session with Ministry of Jal Shakti, additional Special Secretary was there. We had our EU ambassador. We had the Embassy of Germany. We have the Director of EU Commission. So that gave us a very good introduction to the whole day. And of course, we touch upon the 4 areas of the work of the Water Partnership Action Project. We talked about the perspectives. And then the last session was on the research innovation and the business take-up. But it also touched upon the, you can say, going forward. What are the interesting mechanisms to take with us going forward? And maybe we'll learn a little bit more today about this a little later in this session. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilla, for highlighting the key points and takeaways from the 5th India-EU Water Forum that, as you mentioned, took place a week ago on the 27th of October. I think what's really interesting of what Camilla said, she was pointing out at the fact that the partnership is a two-way road of exchange, is a give and take, is a learn and teach. And this is really interesting because brings me to the fact, linking to what Vikrant presented earlier on the sharing of experiences on river basin management planning. So planning, use and saving water resources on the basin of a river basin, planning on river basin management plans that the EU Water Framework Directive is already implementing in Europe since many years with quite successful results. So when this India-EU Water Partnership was established and the action was developed, the idea was to share experiences in managing water resources based on a river basin. And what's really interesting is that in Europe, this management of resources poses a very great emphasis on the management of water quality. Water quality is one of the key issues for Europe because population is smaller than India. We have 500 million. You have almost 1.5 billion of people in India. It's a different climatic situation, it's a different density of population. So water quality in Europe is the key issue. In India, water quality is also a key issue, but water quantity and water allocation and the sharing of water for different uses is also a very important issue. So when the exchange of experiences happened on this idea of managing water resources based on the basin, the approaches that Europe is implementing in Europe had to be adapted and changed and made suitable to address the issues of water in India, which means also taking in particular in consideration water allocation and water quantity. And this is exactly the idea of partnership, sharing and developing new approaches that come maybe from the idea and the approaches of Europe, but then are changed and adapted and improved to assess the situation in India. And that's what makes a partnership a two-way working together, learning, teaching, and changing things. And this brings me to the next presentation on climate change and impact on water. We mentioned earlier climate change and use of resources, two global issues. And we will have two presentations, one from Mr. Jukka Ilomäki, the Councillor of Trade and Environment, and the second one from Professor Gosain. So, Mr. Jukka Ilomäki, please.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for Laura and also Camilla for letting me to talk, and also like for the good cooperation that we had especially like over the last month. So it is a great pleasure for me to be here. Actually, it's not a presentation. I don't have any slides, and it's more like of a comment. What I will make, and I also like want to tell just a little bit about Finland and also how I see the different EU member states. With the quite short time what I have been in India, so if I have understood some things also, like it is that there is a huge differences. It's like a big continent rather than a country. And then if you think of EU, we have several member states which are quite different. When it comes to Finland, so we are known for the Nokia, lakes, forests, and then also like that, like we have been doing quite nicely on some international comparisons. One of them being the sustainability overall ranking and also the water quality related things. So whatever we have done, somehow we have been doing quite well on managing some issues. We don't have like any direct financial cooperation like the EU can be seen as a donor in India, similar to USAID or other donors. So like we don't have that sort of financial cooperation, but it is more on research and then also like a direct private sector cooperation. Now, I would like to start by saying a comment that like when it comes to the climate change and water, I believe that all of us start to be on the same understanding that the key word is unpredictability. It is now fully accepted that the extreme weather events, floods and droughts, they are more frequent and also that like whatever are our systems, the digital solutions, the monitoring, what we do, we can't fully like still fully answer to the like what is happening, and that makes me think that like when it comes to the river basin management plans and river basin management in general, there is like quite a big need to basically like come up and like improve what we are doing. This is actually like similar solution or like recognition what has come on water supply and sanitation itself. So it is like whatever we do in capacity building and governance, somehow we have to come up. I did make a comment on the last week EU-India Water Forum that like now when the EU project or program you have been doing like this river basin management plan for one river basin. The question is that like, okay, how can you replicate like are we able to do those like decisions and solutions which really are like able to be implemented. So let's give an example now. If Prime Minister Modi and like some EU like high level persons would make a strong decision that now we want to do 15 more of those river basin management plans, what might be the adjustments what would be needed? Can we afford same sort of like complexity, or do we need to have something more practical, more straightforward? Also, like having been personally working on a little bit similar sort of like programs earlier, I would certainly see as a kind of like outsider that like these processes really take some time. So like 2 phases, yes, that's good. But to really bring some fruits of the cooperation, I think that like probably some more time is needed to really take the some of the good lessons to the practice. The next item I would like to make a comment is the transboundary element. So like when it comes to the climate change, so like it certainly like calls upon like to the issues of managing across the borders. So yes, we can talk here in India about the different states and different users having different kind of needs. But like quite quickly we go also to the issue of that this is not only like India's water. You have the neighboring countries and like my government have been quite a lot involved, especially on the UNECE Water Convention, and like now big like large level like river basins like Ganga, where the treaty is to be expired in couple of years, there is certainly need for like recognition for the international element. I'm not here to talk about politics. I'm engineer by education and also otherwise like can't really comment on the complexities of the political affairs. But when it comes to the water and the needs, the discussion is needed. Like I used to work for quite many years in Nepal, and if I take the Nepal-India issues, so certainly the water which is coming from Nepal, it touches very big issues of the electricity, hydropower, of the flood protection, and then the food, agriculture, water needs, which have been recognized in many presentations here. The next quick comment is on the role of private sector and innovation. I do understand that also the EU-funded program is like willing to share possibilities of the private sector. There is plenty of knowledge in India. We also have quite some in EU, like when it comes to Finland, we, for example, have like many monitoring related solutions, digital solutions, which like could be applicable, and like the cooperation could really provide good like fruits for both partners. I think that like I already heard from the previous presentation of some of the examples. So like I'm happy about the possibilities, and like I would really hope that like this forum, but also other forums, could provide for like sharing these examples for the bigger amounts of people. Finally, I would like to finish by like one concrete example what we have like in which Finland has been like active. We have established something called Inno-Nordic Water Forum. This is a forum which is like not something where you just come once together, but it is more like of the Nordic organization. So like it is the academia, it is the non-governmental organizations, it is the private sector and the governmental organizations working together. It's an initiative which is still coming up, but like personally, I'm a strong believer of like somehow sharing the expertise through these sort of forums which are there to rather to stay than like just meeting once in a month. It's an initiative which is still ongoing and like hopefully will materialize in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jukka. That was the view from Finland, from the Trade and Investment Council at the Embassy of Finland. As we have seen, this partnership has got many stakeholders. It's a partnership between India and EU, but the member states in Europe also play an important role, and we very often have contributions from different member states in all our activities. So we go back now to the climate change issue and climate change impact on water, including climate change scenarios in modeling for river basin management. And we go back to this issue, water quantity, impact of climate change on water quantity. How do we decide, based on a scientific model, how to allocate this water, how to best manage a river based on its basin? So I would like to invite Professor Gosain from IIT Delhi here to give us his presentation then.
Thank you very much. Can you put my slides on, please? Who's operating the slides? Can I have my presentation, please? So basically, I am going to talk about the modeling exercise which was done to generate the information which can be acted upon when you want to do the river basin management plan. That's the core issue. So how we can use the, can I operate using this? Yeah. So just to create a context, what's the present status of water in the country? Why we need to really do the river basin management plans? That's a very important issue. Are we doing something or are we missing something which requires us to manage our water resources better? So the present situation, not only in Tapi Basin, but almost every other basin, we are finding that the demand which we are imposing on the basins is much more than the availability. And that is quite apparent in the fact that the groundwater tables are going down year after year. That means we are taking the deficit of our requirement from the groundwater. So we have reached this situation because of the fact that we are not really given a heed to this requirement, and we have never been really conscious of the fact that this is something which is not sustainable. In the long run, there will come a time when the whole groundwater will be depleted, and then we'll not be left with anything, which is basically the groundwater is meant to be used very judiciously during the time of need. We have not been having a mechanism in place before we impose any new demand on the water resources to have a trade-off that what are the existing demands and how much additional demand it can be taking. So those trade-offs are not available, and for that you need to really come out with mechanisms which can be used, and that is exactly what has been showcased for the Tapi Basin. So ultimately everything boils down to that whatever usage you are having with the natural variability, it should be sustainable. You should not be making an impact on the basin which is detrimental, because if your groundwater tables are going down, then a time will come when the rivers will also start losing water to the groundwater, and your rivers will go dry in the long run. So the integrated water resources management is the key, which is something which is known to all of us. We have been talking of that for the many years, last 50, 60 years, but never it has been implemented effectively. So the sustainability means that you should not having any detrimental effect on the water usage. It should not be, it should be available for even the coming generations. Now it's a separate question that since whatever we were doing earlier, we were assuming that there is a stationarity of your water resource availability. You're not going to have this availability lowering down or going up, but with the climate change implications, that has not remained stationary now. It can go either way. So what are the actions which we can take to do a better management of this precious resource? We have already agreed, and this is part of our national water policy, that let's develop the river basin management plans. And that's where the EU has come to the rescue. They said that, okay, we have been doing back home in our systems, so we'll lend that support. And while doing this river basin management plans, you first have to find out what is the resource availability in your basin, because every basin is a different, having a different character. So the characterization of your basin is very important. Then you have to also see that how much demand you are imposing, what is your present demand, and what is your future demand. If your future demand is such, even present demand, you are not able to cope up. You have to do something drastically different to cope up to the additional demand of future. Then you have to find out the measures that if your demand is going up, but your availability is the same, how you can do the demand management by enhancing the efficiencies of water use or by reusing the water. There are many options available, and that's exactly is the whole gamut of your the river basin management plans. But that is not that simple because water is a very complex issue. Is a dynamic thing. It doesn't behave in a linear manner. It is a highly nonlinear resource. And then you have to develop the pathways accordingly so that the sustainability is in the core of the whole thing. And for that, you need the information basis. You need the information frameworks, and that's exactly in this particular exercise. Information framework is being put together. So the first thing which comes in the requirement is to know the hydrological nature of your basin. And for that, these days we have the distributed hydrological models available, which mimic all the natural processes. You can also call them as digital twin of your basin, and by which whatever nature is doing for you, you can mathematically do, and you can translate that and find out what will happen if you do some man-made interventions. So in this particular case, the Tapi Basin, which has been taken as a case study under this program, it has 3 states participating in this whole area, geographical area of the Tapi Basin. Madhya Pradesh is having the some part of the area. Maharashtra is the major portion, and then Gujarat is also having some portion of it. So when we are doing the setting up the models, what it does, it just takes into consideration all the basic characteristics of the basin, which is the terrain, what kind of terrain it has, what kind of land use it has, what kind of soil it has, and then how these 3 things, which are the major characteristics of a basin, how they react to the changing weather conditions. So we impose the weather conditions on top of that. So these pictures you are seeing, they are basically, one is DEM, which is a terrain, then the land use is there, soil is there. But we cannot stop there, because if it was a natural system where you have not made any man-made changes, then this would work very well. But since we have made many man-made changes, we have created dams, we have created diversions, all those things also need to be simulated and implemented in your simulation process. So for that, you have to look at how many man-made structures are there which need to be brought in. So ultimately, all this data which is used is for validation of your model. So we have the data coming from Center Water Commission, where they are at around, in this particular case, at around 23 different locations. There are 21 Center Water Commission hydrological sites and another 30 sites from the state. All these sites are having the observed data of the past. So what we do, we run the model using the past historical weather conditions, weather data, and then produce the outputs at different locations, these locations where you are observing the flows, and compare what the model has given and what you have observed. Is there a good comparison? If there is a good comparison, that means you have been able to assess the various characterization of the area, and you are able to now produce whatever the nature is giving you, and that is what becomes the basis of your action or your policy making. Now, in this, we have created these scenarios, and I think there's a shortage of time. I'll just go further, because these scenarios are, there's a good thing that in the simulation process, having validated the model, you can now look at, if there was no development, what would have been the original natural flows. So that is the second scenario, which otherwise is not possible. So if you want to really find out how much is the environmental flow which was there earlier, you have to get that through the natural flows simulation. This gives you the number of different projects which are there, which have been implemented in this whole simulation. And that is what has been achieved. And these are the comparison between the observed flows and the simulated flows at different gauge locations, at different sites. I'll just skip this also. So there's a good comparison. There's another slide which shows overall. You can see here that all these, this is the evaluation of your validation. The dark green says is very good simulation. The light green is good simulation and then satisfactory. So there were a couple of places where we couldn't get very good simulation because of various reasons. Now finally, having got these series, these scenarios, we could get a very good basic insight into the basin. That the blue is the flow duration curve. That means on the average, at this particular flow, level of flow is exceeded or equaled for this much percentage of time. This is what the flow duration curve gives. And wherever there is no change in the three cases, one is the present situation, the natural situation, and one is where we are not using the irrigation water, using the groundwater. So where the three are similar, that means there's not much change in that regime of that particular stretch of river. But there are most of the cases where the flow has increased slightly in the low flow season, which is the dotted red line. Now this is because of the over irrigation by the groundwater. This is something which is a unique outcome of the simulation, which will become a very good outcome in terms of giving to the stakeholders the present situation. That this is what is happening in your basin. Now you have to take the decisions on the basis of what you have done to your basin. So wherever there is a, then I think this also there's another slide where this model also gives you the opportunity to simulate the crops, because it has a crop growth model. So it can, we have put all those cropping patterns and compared what the model is giving as the yield and the biomass and what actually you are getting in the crop cutting experiments on in that system. So there's a very close comparison that also shows that the model is, I mean, what we have been able to capture the biological and the bioprocesses of all the crops which are being used. This is another segment where we have looked at what will be the implication of the climate change in this basin, both for RCP 4.5 and RCP 8.5. How much, and towards the mid-century and the end century. So this analysis also will give you a lot of insight in terms of what you need to take action if you want to really bring the climate change implications also into consideration. Now here, using these outcomes, then it was declared that which are the stretches which are at risk, which are the ones which are not at risk, and that is what has been put in this particular report. So this is a work in progress. We are still working with some of the additional data which couldn't be available at that time under the phase 2, and this will be further improved. But finally, you can say that this is the outcome of this exercise, which can be given to the stakeholders, all the states, and they have to be made to sit in one place on a table and look at collectively that what they need to do and how the new policies need to be really brought in. That's the whole, I think the requirement of such an exercise. That is a dynamic thing. You can keep on generating scenarios till there's a convergence between all the stakeholders and they are happy with their decision. Thank you much.
Thank you, Professor Gosain. for this really fascinating overview. As Professor Gosain mentioned, tools are good when they are supporting decision making. And this is what we have been seeing, how many stakeholders come together and are brought together by this partnership that is also offering the tools. Now decisions have been taken, informed decisions based on reliable data, and that is really fascinating. It's actually, we are eating on our time here in this room, so I will invite the last two speakers for just a few minutes, looking at the way forward for the partnership. Mr. Karia, the Chief Engineer from the Central Water Commission. Please, up to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Certainly, this is the fourth day of India Water Week, so fatigue has set in the participants. And just before, these two sessions are very difficult, just before the lunch and just, of course, just after the lunch. So anyway, as the theme of this seventh IWW mainly focusing on water security. As I understand that whatever thinking, whatever studies, whatever planning, whatever interventions, executions, implementations we are doing, it is for the improving water security for the people of the country. The four topics, four themes which have been taken during this phase 2 of India-EU Water Partnership. They are very, very relevant, and a lot much is being discussed. In fact, when we had this 5th Water Forum on 27th of last month, so the Horizon 2020, it came out with so many good studies. There are 7 research topics going on, and so many innovations and other things were shared with the participants there. I think that a mechanism was also suggested that we may go for developing one incubation center or innovation center named as Jal Shakti Innovation Center. So that may perhaps give a shape to those innovations in a larger implementable way, or to the pupil, it may take that. A good, very good findings have been told by Professor Gosain in this IWRM study, and so some peculiar outcomes are coming out of these climate change studies in other basins as well, but the further refinement of studies is yet to be done. But I will request that since it is over exploitation of groundwater, as he suggested, so what happened with the groundwater also. So if we can take on board groundwater authority of the pupil. Certainly, we look forward to work in other basins, but mainly let us focus on solution forum, which has been suggested in this phase 2, that whatever interventions coming out of these studies and discussions with the participating states, they may take shape so that people can see that what this partnership is bringing to them for their betterment. That will be a good way forward in my view. And the other thing which I suggested, that we may go for setting up of Jal Shakti Incubation Center or Innovation Center, which may take up not only those innovations, but allow other water professionals to give a shape to their ideas, which may be financially very viable or which may be socially very viable, socially very impactful. In both ways, those things we may try out. The other, the reuse of wastewater, a very good work has been done and being further done. I was very happy to note and to share with you that whatever work has been done for e-flow, the moderator in that particular session during Fifth Water Forum, he was very appreciative of that and suggested that some of these things can be even taken in the EU or the EU partner countries. They may also look into that and adopt as per their suitability. So I would not take much of the time. Ms. Laura already suggested that we are eating into the eating times. Thank you very much from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karia, also for the timekeeping. That is remarkable. And then Mrs. Camilla Christensen-Rai, again on the way forward and maybe some closing remarks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So it has been a great pleasure to be here at the India Water Week 2022, and that the India-EU Water Partnership could have a session here today. I just want to say a few points. And one of them is also about what you mentioned from Embassy of Finland, because I think this is a quite important point. A lot of work. We have the Tapi River Basin Management Plan prepared. There may be more further work on fine-tuning. There is a Tapi River Basin Management Committee, and there's a Tapi River Basin Management Toolbox. So I think it's really a good question to think about and maybe discuss further. That is, how and to what extent a Tapi River Basin Management Plan can be used in other basins. Of course, we are taking it. It is being taken into the Ramganga basin as well, but also to other countries maybe. So I think this question. Thank you for raising this point from Embassy of Finland, because it's about a preparation of a plan, but it's also about the institutional setup, which is unique because it brings together the various actors, the various stakeholders, the various authorities, which has to be at the table if you want to do managing the river basin. And so it is not something we have time to discuss here today, how and to what extent it could be taken to other basins, even to other countries. So that was one point. And second point is about what also came from our EU India Water Forum, what also was mentioned just now by Central Water Commission, is the, you can say, transition into implementation. Of course, more work needs to be done, but the implementation is something also we have heard from our higher levels of our government or EU. The transition into implementation is a very important step for us for the work we are doing. The suggestions on the incubation facility on the Ministry of Jal Shakti is one suggestion. We are working on this context of a solution, what we call a solution forum. There's other mechanisms also here in India. So we wish to find a good path in that direction, and a synergy among such mechanisms. And maybe a last point I would say is that, and that's about air pollution, in fact. Because from the EU, we also fund and engaged on air pollution. And in order to tackle air pollution, you need to work in an airshed, with an airshed approach. And in fact, I believe that the work done here from the India-EU Water Partnership, and particularly on the river basin management and the Tapi River Committee, is something which could be of great inspiration of the work on airshed management. Because in order to tackle air pollution, you need, of course, to work on a city level or maybe a state level, but you need to work on a regional or cross state levels, and that's maybe also an inspiration we can bring from the EU and how we work in that regard. Okay, but thank you so much. Thank you for today. Thank you.
Are you taking? Thank you, Camilla, for the way forward. Sorry, this was a little bit of an organizational point. We are already 15 minutes into the lunch break, but I still open up to the audience to see if there are any questions to our panelists. Anybody that wants to use this moment to ask that one thing? Yes, please. Can you tell us your name also?
Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Parikshit Bansal. I'm a biochemist. I'm a scientist turned entrepreneur. And we have invented the world's first non-electrical chlorinator for water disinfection. So it has been selected by the ministry for reaching to the lowest pyramid of people and helping in public water supply disinfection. So my question is that is there any incentives or anybody would like to support our invention? It is for tackling microbial infection in water in a very low cost manner. So
Thank
that is
you.
my question to the.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the question is, when we are having new inventions coming up, new technology that is addressing water disinfection, incentives and promotion of development of this. Yeah, Camilla? Yeah. Yeah. There is a mic, Camilla.
Actually, seeing your development, whatever you have done, and similarly, we were thinking that there may be many other people with the idea, so that incubation center was proposed. But however, since something has been developed and it is to your satisfaction, so what I suggest that a lot many business people are there in exhibition, a very big exhibition. I think you might have already visited, but with this view, you can find partners there right now, because whatever we are discussing, it may come in future and things may take time. So that is all from my side. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And yeah, what Mr. Karya was also mentioning earlier, this is why there is the need of something like an incubation under the water ministry, exactly to support this kind of technology. So we'll look into the future in that. So if we have no other questions, then yes, we do have another question. Thank you, madam.
Good afternoon. I'm Sunita from INREM Foundation. Basically, India is more dependent on groundwater, either for drinking purpose, for agriculture purpose. You know, like for upcoming this one, EU is interested to work on groundwater because river basin is equally important. But when we really look at it, India is completely or more or less dependent more on the groundwater, either to tackle the contaminants or also for drinking purpose, for agriculture also. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because more and more amount of groundwater being used or exploited because we use so much.
Yeah, absolutely. This we also heard from the presentation. No, the groundwater is really the main source of irrigation water. But Professor Gosain, maybe you have an answer here.
I think you are right, but the question is that groundwater is not standalone. There is interaction between surface water and groundwater. You have to understand that and then look at the conjunctive use of the surface water and groundwater. That is part of any river basin management plan.
Thank you. So any more questions? I'll count it back. 5, 4, 3, 2. No other questions? Then I would like to thank very much the organizers of the India Water Week for giving us the opportunity and this to present the outcomes of or generally the India-EU Water Partnership, and for hosting us here so professionally. So I would like to leave the stage again to Sutapa from the Central Water Commission. Please, stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I thank all the speakers of today's session on the India-EU Partnership on Water Cooperation, whose common vision is for a more sustainable management of water resources and tackling the various challenges that comes with it. Although trends are alarming, this session has contributed successfully with possible ways on water security for sustainable development with equity. And thoughts do become things. With that positive note, we now move forward for the felicitation of the speakers on the dais. May I now request Shri Ashok Kumar Khariaji, Chief Engineer CWC, to kindly felicitate Mr. Juka Ilomaki with the memento. I request Kharia sir again to kindly felicitate Miss Laura Sustar Sikh with the memento, please. Thank you so much, sir. I request Kharia sir again to felicitate Mr. Vikrant Tyagi with the memento, please. Thank you so much, sir. May I now request Ms. Camilla Christensen Rai to please felicitate Mr. A.K. Gosai with the memento. Ma'am, may I request you again to kindly felicitate Mr. R. Giridhar with the memento. Thank you so much, ma'am. May I now request Shri Rishi Srivastavji, Chief Engineer CWC, to kindly felicitate Ms. Camilla Christensen Rai with the memento. I request you, sir, again to kindly felicitate Shri Ashok Kumar Kharia ji with the memento. Thank you so much, sir. May I request Kharia sir to kindly felicitate Shri Vastav sir with the memento, please. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending this session and making it a success. Namaskar and have a great day. But before that, I request everybody to kindly proceed and enjoy the lunch. Bon appetit. Thank you. Yeah, I request everybody to kindly get down together for a group photograph, please.